I started sprinkling little political things into my coverage bit by bit, to the point now where I'm kind of synonymous in the tech industry with the boogeyman. I'm an evil Nazi fascist because I cover things from a centrist or right-leaning point of view, and Google doesn't pay my rent. So that's what I do. Go to lunduke.com. It's fantastic. And that's kind of my thing.
Everything you just said, Blabs, does this sound familiar to you?
I mean, I was just called a racist this morning, so of course.
It's not a day that ends in Y if you don't get called a Nazi or a fascist at least once.
But Lunduke, great journalist, did an article on an insider meeting for Adobe where they were talking about their DEI program and how they've never had quotas for hiring based on DEI practices, but going forward, they would no longer use those practices. And they talked about how they had them, but they never used them. And Lunduke released the video in one of his videos because he got it via a whistleblower. And so he did a whole story on the DEI practices, and he got hit with a copyright strike. And he also did a second video where he followed up on it, and he got hit with another strike. Even though there was no video from Adobe in that second video, they hit him with a second strike on that second video just because he was talking about it again.
Well, it's always good to talk about people, but it's always good to talk with people. So joining us now from the Lunduke Journal, the gentleman you're speaking about. Hello,
Hi.
Great to see you. Nice to meet you.
Holy heavens, look at you, handsome bunch. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Hey, talking about you there, Eric. Look at him right there. There he is.
Yeah.
It's the hat that does it.
That's right. It is. Isn't it great how the headphones go through the hat? It's outstanding.
It's really. Did you cut the holes into your hat just to do that?
Yeah. Custom.
That's dedication. I love it.
I appreciate that you answered that like, yeah, of course I did.
No, it came this way. I swear.
All right. Well, Lunduke, it's a pleasure to meet you, man. And glad you're with us. First and foremost, tell everybody about your channel and let's get a little background on you.
So the Lunduke Journal's been around for a hell of a long time. We've mostly just been doing tech stuff. I started out just doing tech with a dedication to never touching anything political. This is how it was way back when. I used to be a tech executive, and after I got burnt out on all that garbage, I decided to just talk about tech and never anything political. And over the years, it really hit me that there was absolutely no tech journalists covering anything that was happening in the world of tech from the centrist or right-leaning side of things. And there was even less tech journalists, even fewer, that weren't funded entirely by big tech. So,
okay. So literally everything you said sounds exactly like our story here on Side Scrollers, where the intention was to not touch anything political at all. And the more we started talking about these things, the more it became super apparent. Like, I've been in the video game industry a long time, just like you have in the tech industry, right? I've been doing this for almost 20 years at this point. And the story, the parallels are eerie, how close that you're speaking, because we get the exact same thing. We're the Nazis, fascists, whatever, blah, 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 because we don't play by the rules, because we're not located in San Francisco or New York or LA, right? Because our audience is filled with normal men, right? So listen, I already feel this connection with you and I love where this is going. Okay.
We're simpatico. Let's rock and roll.
I love it. I love everything about this. Okay. So you had this, we're big believers in merit on this channel. You know, the whole DEI thing doesn't really fly with us. Like, I think that if I've hired people from all races, reads, sexual orientations, whatever. If you're the best at your job, I will hire you. It doesn't matter, right?
Bingo.
That's just how things work.
I could care less what color a person's skin is or what random shirt they want to wear. I don't care. They need to do their job.
Yep, I agree. I 100% agree. So you had this story about Adobe and YouTube. So why don't you fill in where some of the holes that Eric had there?
So, all right. So the basic backstory on this is a whole lot of big tech companies are wrestling with their DEI policies right now, and Adobe was one of them. IBM famously is, getting sued out the wazoo right now for some of their DEI policies and the like, which the Lunduke Journal had a part in. And as that's happening, these companies are trying to figure out exactly what to do going forward, especially because they're afraid of Trump, right? The Trump executive orders making it so they can't work with government agencies if they have a whole bunch of DEI programs. That's a big loss of money. So if you look at Adobe's past track record with DEI stuff, they were all in a year ago. A year ago, they were their SEC filings, like they're literally their stock filings and their financial filings were filled with DEI stuff. It was nonstop. Then this year happens, and the executive orders from Trump happen, and a whole bunch of other things are going on. Different companies are getting sued, and all of a sudden, they have no mention of diversity, of DEI, of anything in their current SEC filings. They started dropping everything. And I started noticing that and publishing and saying, hey, everyone, look, Adobe is just about to ditch all of their filings here. They're ditching all the DEI stuff. This is happening. And then a whistleblower with inside Adobe contacted me and managed to get me about a 7 or 8 minute video of an Adobe all hands meeting. This was from about 2 weeks ago now, I believe. Mm-hmm. And during the all hands meeting, their chief people officer, which is a real job, right. It's absolutely ridiculous. So their chief people officer, their CPO, gets on stage and she makes the statement. And the man in the glorious hat already read it, but I'm going to read it to you again because it is absolutely asinine. Quote, "We have never hired based on quotas, but going forward, we will discontinue the practice." And this was, don't think about it too hard. It makes the brain bleed and ooze out the ears and all that stuff.
It really does.
It's awful.
Pretty
and then the Adobe CEO gets on stage. They have a little panel, and that's the video. And makes a statement that they have a duty to operate within the boundaries of the law, and that they're asking their employees to be patient with them as they make changes. And very quickly, they start removing DEI and diversity words from their websites and documents and all that sort of thing. So I published the video with some commentary. Very quickly, Adobe decided they did not like that. Now, the Lunduke Journal publishes all over the place, right? Up on X and YouTube and Rumble and wherever. They only hit me with a copyright claim on YouTube. And anyone who knows how YouTube works knows that it's basically an automated system. Right. If a company comes in and says, "This guy took our stuff," YouTube instantly responds by taking the video down and issuing a strike at the channel. Adobe issued 2 copyright claims against the Lunduke Journal. The first was because of that video. Now, because I'm a working journalist and because this is something in the public interest, it does fall squarely under Section 107 of the Copyright Act, which means it is fair use, and I have a very good case for defending my fair use of it. Adobe's lawyers know that because they're not retarded. However, the second video that they put a claim against me on didn't have any of that video in it. It was literally just me criticizing Adobe. Which means that they lied to YouTube in their copyright takedown claim in order to silence a working journalist who was being critical of their company. I reached out to Adobe. I said, "Hey, you might have screwed up a little bit here. You need to check this one out. This isn't really going to stand up in court. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Maybe you should just rescind this because this is a whoops-a-daisy on your part." They never responded. I contacted their CEO. I contacted their PR and marketing departments. I contacted the social media lady who actually was the person who filed the official copyright notice. Never got a response. So last Friday, I sent in my counter notification to YouTube, which means that Adobe now has 12 working days to legally 10 respond to me. So basically, they have an opportunity to sue me, to get a lawyer to start sending me some very nasty grams, and provide copies of those to YouTube, or in theory, YouTube would put them back up. I have still not heard from Adobe. As yet, it's been complete radio silence on the matter. So that brings us up to today on this one.
So you're legit fighting back, and you're saying, "Hey, come get it. If I truly violated something here, come get it and sue me." And
Yes.
that's awesome. Love
I
it.
mean, this is sort of a, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine sort of moment. It's Adobe is Adobe, all right? Adobe already has a bad track record amongst nerds, right? I mean, everyone's pissed off at Adobe's subscription policies. They're annoyed at Adobe's copyright policies. And now Adobe is literally misusing, abusing copyright law and lying in order to silence a critical journalist, whoever it is, whether it's me or you guys or the Wall Street Journal. You have to say no to that. Now, I have not filed legal action against Adobe at this point, because if I go down that road, Adobe has a lot of opportunities to silence me legally in the court system. So for instance, if I file a suit right now against Adobe is well within their rights to turn around and say, okay, fine, but we want the judge to rule that while this court is ongoing, Lunduke can't talk about us, right? And that's a fairly common thing for a judge to rule. And considering my job and the fact that I want to keep talking about this, I have not filed suit against Adobe because of this, even though I probably would be within my rights to do so. I am within my rights to do so, but I probably would do well in the courts. But I would rather talk about it than just get tied up in courts for 2 years.
So what happens if they don't rescind it?
What happens if they do file suit against me?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of law firms that have reached out. It's interesting. It would be amazing to me if they filed suit against me, because I don't know what Adobe would get out of it. Right? I mean, if you're Adobe, what do you get if you file suit against the Lunduke Journal? I'm not a millionaire, right? They're not going to get a lot of money. So there's no financial reward. And it's just going to make them look bad, right? As long as that court case is going on, every time something happens about it, it's going to get covered. And remember the time that Adobe silenced the journalist because they can't handle criticism. I mean, it's the ultimate Streisand effect at that point. And I just don't see how they come out of it making more money than when they went in. It would be a colossal PR blunder for them to actually file suit. Now they could file suit. If they did that, I don't see how they could win the suit unless they got just the most annoying judge in all the land. Now that's possible, but even if they got the most annoying judge, they rolled the snake eyes, and they managed to get the one judge who was like, you know what? Journalists should not be allowed to publish leaked material. That's not okay. You should be able to say, oh, that's a copyright infringement. Because if a judge ruled that way, that would also apply to things like leaked emails. And that would mean that the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, every publication out there would no longer be able to use confidential sources or whistleblowers. So I just don't see that happening. But they could tie it up in the courts for years. I mean, realistically, that's the biggest potential pain point for me. But that's almost far worse for Adobe. If you're Adobe's shareholders or board, do you really want an almost monthly set of news stories about how you, Adobe, are the schoolyard bully and you hate journalists? I mean, you don't want that out there. So I don't expect them to do so. What I expect them to do is nothing. I expect them to not respond to me, and they haven't. I expect them to let the 10, 12 days, whatever it is, lapse, and just try to let the story fizzle out. I mean, if they're smart, that's probably what they'll do. But we'll find out. I mean, we'll watch them as it goes.
Well, there's some other elements to this, which are actually really interesting, which Eric wanted to chime in on when it comes to this, because he's been dealing with copyright claims. Eric's, your channel is called You Me in the Movies. They do movie reactions while being very precise with your editing, I guess is the right way to say, Eric. But you obviously run into copyright issues as well when it comes to your stuff. So wanted to kind of open this up to you, Eric, about your theory when it comes to a lot of this as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Lunduke. You said you got the social media at Adobe is the one that filed. Like, how she filed the claim, or that's just who you're assuming did?
When you get for those of you who have never been hit with this before, when you get the claim at you, you get a contact email address for whoever runs the account that is coming against you. Adobe has a Gmail account that is their head of social media, their high level executive that oversees all of their social media and public outreach stuff, that has a Gmail account specifically for it. So I know specifically who it is because of that. It's registered in her name, which I think is weird. But after doing a little digging, I verified that it was in fact her, and she was in fact the head of social media over at Adobe. But that's how I know who did it.
I'd be interested to seeing where, like, it's surprising that Adobe is using a Gmail for their contact and not at adobe.com.
So I used to run social media at a company called Sousa. Head of marketing at a couple of tech companies in years past, and it's actually fairly common. I know IBM does something similar. Their main accounts are actually Gmail accounts that deal with YouTube. I know that particular company, Sousa, did the same thing. A couple other companies do that as well. They just kind of what they do is they create a sort of a set of Gmail accounts or a corporate Gmail account that they use for all their Google related stuff. I don't necessarily know if it's a good idea, but many companies do it. So it's not that out of the ordinary, but I wouldn't recommend it personally.
Because I feel like I'm currently fighting a strike on our channel right now for one of our reviews, and the contact on this claim was at Gmail, and that sent me red flags thinking it was a fraudulent claim.
It should.
So
yeah. So to be clear, everyone, there are a lot of fraudulent claims that are going on. People are doing this all the time. There's just people will get a Gmail account and they will start filing copyright claims with their pseudo anonymous Gmail account at YouTube channels they don't like. This is a common thing. In my case, in the case of Adobe, I was able to track it down because it was a very specific Gmail address, and I was able to track down the person's name and all that and get it a little more verified. But no, that is a really common thing. It absolutely is. So when I saw that, it sent red flags for me, but it also, when I reached out to YouTube, I did get a response from YouTube verifying that it was from their point of view from Adobe. So that's as far as we've gotten. I did give Adobe a couple of chances to verify that, reaching out to their PR and marketing and everyone else, and I just haven't gotten any response at all, which is bizarre.
Okay.
Well, this is crazy interesting to see.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's your business, right? I would imagine. So, what has been, you mentioned kind of the pushback that you receive from, tech reporters or just the tech industry. What has kind of been response? You mentioned how you have this, you're the black sheep, right, of the tech industry.
Yeah,
right?
I'm the redheaded stepchild of tech reporting for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the, I guess, consequences you've seen by not being traditional access media? That's kind of what we call it here, access media. Have you seen any pushback? Have you had articles published about you?
Regularly. In fact, there was one tech journalist specifically declared that I was a Nazi, and that what did he say? That there should be no safe quarter for me, and they basically said that it would be a good idea for people to take me out. This is kind of, that's the more extreme end of things, but the bigger problem has really been that the stories that I break tend to be ignored by tech news media entirely for multiple reasons. One is they just hate me. And I get it. I'm the different politics from what they have, and they can't be seen cozying up to me. Otherwise they're part of the Nazi bar or whatever it is at that point. I get it. But part of it is, even more than the politics, if ZDNet or the Register or all these other tech news sites, if they come out and they start covering the things that I'm breaking, like for example, I got a whole bunch of leaks from IBM last year, and these were huge leaks and big videos and slide presentations about crazy DEI stuff. It was nuts. And it was very big news because there were lawsuits attached to it. So from the tech news perspective, it was at the moment some of the biggest news in the big tech world, but they could not cover it because there was no easy way for them to cover it without really pissing off IBM and all the IBM affiliates that advertise with them.
Right.
So they just simply can't cover it at all. And the few times that you will see the news outlets covering it, they really run cover for those big tech companies.
Oh.
And so that's kind of the biggest thing is normally if you're a tech journalist, you put out a news story and you live and die by the other news outlets linking to you. They're like, oh, news from this news outlet. Oh, look at this. And you cover it and you quote them and you put them up. And that's how the traffic gets generated, right? You want the crazy people at Gizmodo to post your article and then you get the traffic. So I don't have that option, right? So I have to rely on actual normal human beings to go out there and share the word about all of that because I don't have any of the tech news sites that have my back in it. That's the biggest issue. But as things have grown and as the audience has gotten bigger, that's become less and less of a problem. So there's worse problems in the world to have.
Listen, everything you're saying we relate to. Everything you say we totally get. And
I thought you might.
Listen, we are simpatico here, buddy. It's crazy. And I've always said, like, the video game industry is the most insane industry there is out there. Tech may be right there with it. I mean, it probably is because it's built in the same areas, same world, same product that are surroundings. We've dealt with the exact same issues you have, and you get labeled all these things, and you're like, what are you talking about? It's just in these words lose all their meaning when it comes to that. So it is silly. So what's interesting about you though,
it's silly indeed.
I went to lunduke.com and
that's the website on the internet, by the way. No crazy CSS, no JavaScript. It is one old style. This thing might as well be up on GeoCities.
I love it. I
like my website. That's all I'm saying right now.
I appreciate that you still have you put your MP4 downloads up.
I do.
It's great.
I mean, it's at any moment I could be censored off of any given platform, right? I can't live and die by YouTube. Mm-hmm. I mean, YouTube, I already have 2 strikes against me at the moment. This isn't even the first round of that. So I have to publish to as many platforms as possible to continue existing. I mean, which is funny because the Lunduke Journal, my shows, no swearing, no adult content. Like it might as well be John Wayne specifically making a show for toddlers. Like it's as family friendly as it can possibly be in this space, and yet I run the constant risk of getting booted off because I'll have a guest on that says something wrong about vaccines, or I'll say something naughty about IBM or Microsoft, and so I have to publish everywhere. So my website is basically just a list of links. Go to these places and find my stuff. It's just the way it has be.
You have a locals as well with 8,000 members. That's outstanding.
Yeah. The locals guys have been great. I've been over on locals. I was one of the early guys that jumped on board there. They always liked having me on board because I wasn't at all political when I joined. I was just a tech guy, and they're like, "Ooh, someone who's not political." But then I got political.
Well, talk about that because I think that's really interesting. The shift of, like, we had the exact same idea, and I wouldn't say we've gone political. I just say we pointed out some of the stupidity that's happened in
the people who hate you would say you've gone political.
Right.
That's really what it is, right? Like, I don't feel like I've gone political either. I've just pointed out stupid stuff. Right? Like, it's like am I political in my hiring practices? No, I'm a merit-based kind of guy. I believe in the best people for the job, and that seems like the least political stance I could possibly take. But the people who dislike me view that is crazy political. So
Right.
you get painted with the political brush. So like the Lunduke Journal, like I cover Adobe changing policies, like the Adobe story. Is that a political story? In my mind, it's a story about a company changing hiring and firing policies.
Correct.
Like that should be the most boring story on planet Earth. It is an HR update policy story.
Right.
But because the other side views that as so political and defends it so viciously and labels you with so many bad terms like Nazi and fascist and everything else, then you become political. Like you yourself are political by your very existence. That's really how it ended up happening with the Lunduke Journal. I was not political, not viewed political at all, really until they started to catch wind. They smelled it in the air that I said a few things at a conference one time, and they're like, Lunduke might be, is he libertarian? Is he conservative? They couldn't quite tell, but it smelled bad. And from that point onward, I was, the evil empire, even though I'm a small guy.
It didn't smell like them. And
It did not.
Anything that doesn't smell like them, they are out. And they will hunt you down.
They really will.
Oh gosh.
This is fun. So I used to speak at conferences a lot, pre-COVID days, right? In the open source and Linux world, I was Mr. Famous Man, right? Which is, kind of like saying I'm like a Q list celebrity, right? It's very, very narrow niche.
Right.
But so I used to go to conferences and I'd speak at conferences and give these rah shows and get everyone all riled up. And I about a year or two ago, I thought, you know what? It's been a while since I've done that. The conferences are getting back to normal post lockdown, blah blah blah. I'm gonna apply to this conference, this Linux conference out in Texas, and I submitted a proposal to them. I'm like, hey guys, what if I come and give a big keynote? We'll get a whole bunch of people riled up. We'll bring in a bunch of people. It'll be great. It'll be a big nerd fest. It caused, simply by me submitting a proposal, it caused so much chaos inside the conference. Half the people who were running it loved the idea, and half were like, no, Lunduke is a Nazi. Lunduke is a fascist. We can't. The conference ended up canceling itself completely.
What?
Because I submitted a proposal. And
let's go.
It went from a 2-day long conference to they ended up just doing like a lunch with like one presentation from like a corporate sponsor. Then they just called it. They're just like, forget it. We're not doing anything. Just because I did that, which made me feel really powerful. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I've ever felt this virile in my whole life, but that's the way the whole tech industry has gotten now. It's so extreme that if someone like me or like Brendan Eich, who now runs the Brave web browser, whatnot, any of us conservative leaning tech people appear at an event, the whole thing descends into chaos.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. And you know what's the most amazing thing about this is, and I'm sure you've run into a lot of this, where you have people who you've worked with in your space who they probably DM you and are like, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I just can't say anything about it. They can't say anything about it publicly. Like, get that all the time from people in the video game space. And if people were just vocal about their opinions and vocal about calling out all this stupid stuff, it would all end. It'd be done. But people are so scared. They're so terrified of losing something, losing a friendship, losing their job.
They like working in games. I mean, they like their job. They make good money. They don't want to lose that. I get it. It's terrible. You get 2.3 kids and a mortgage, and you don't want to risk that. You don't want to get blacklisted. Mm-hmm. I understand. I mean, I still wish they weren't such pansies about it and they just start speaking up. But I mean, I get where they're coming from, I guess.
Well, we have a lot of support. By the way, we'll certainly follow your story, and if there's updates to your story, we'd love to have you back to kind of continue.
I'll keep you posted. We'll see. I expect this story to fizzle out. At least that's what Adobe is hoping. They're going to go quiet and let it fizzle out. We'll see if that happens. If not, I'll shout it from the rooftops.
Well, I also appreciate that you're realistic about it. It's probably going to go nowhere, but it's worth talking about for sure. I think that's awesome that you're realistic about it.
We had to do it.